welcome. This is Theo Stieler here from Nexus for Change. We are today spending some time together to look at how you might leverage music and mindfulness practices to engage folks in the virtual environment. I am so excited to see a bunch of you. There are some old friends and some new friends and folks I've never met before, and it's really kind of cool. Thank you for being here this Friday afternoon for me and wherever you might be in your various time zones. Mapizza, what time is it for you? It's like 8 at night or something?
It's 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Mapizza is in
Okay.
Lesotho.
Yes.
Awesome. So we are going to look at a couple of different ways that you can, like I said, use music and mindfulness. This is not intended to be a presentation where you just all sit here and listen to whatever wisdom this German guy might be spewing in English. This is very much intended for you to give some feedback and maybe have insights and comments that would be helpful to all of us. And I want to start with simply a moment of silence. Thank you. How did that feel? Good. What happens for us neurologically when we do something like this is what people call a pattern interrupt or pattern reset. And the evidence seems to suggest that once we do something like that as a group, we have a better time and better opportunity to concentrate on whatever's at hand. One way that also you can do that is to share a piece of music. And I need to go back and let me share my screen with the computer sound enabled. And let's just take a listen here for a moment. The volume level comfortable? So I hope that was a meaningful 3 minutes for you guys to just have a chance to not do anything. Seems that we're maybe not physically running all over the place, but a lot of us have been running from one Zoom meeting to the next in our office spaces and in our homes. So I think it's actually meaningful to have a whole long engagement like that at the moment that just allows you to listen and sort of hone into that. Again, if you're sharing music in this Zoom platform, it's important that you enable the share computer sound option when you share your screen. And that's here if on the bottom, once the share screen comes up, you have to click that button there on the bottom left. If it's a specific thing where you're trying to share video, optimized for full screen video can also help in how Zoom processes the video that you're sharing. The next thing I want to invite you to do that some of you that have done sessions with me are probably familiar with is a breathing technique that can also offer this pattern interrupt. It's actually, some people call it box breathing because you can see the visualization here as a box. People call it 16-second breath. There's different names for it out there. I actually learned just recently that it is something that Navy SEALs are taught to combat panic in a mission critical situation. If they're getting nervous, if they're getting anxious, this is a breathing technique that they are taught. And so I invite you to simply follow along if you want visually, or close your eyes. I'm going to count us through this. Again, the idea is we're going to start at the top left corner of the screen. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold the breath for 4 seconds. We're going to breathe out for 4 seconds and then hold the breath again for 4. So here's the breath in. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 3, 4, and again hold. 3, 4. If that seems strange to you and you just want to invite folks to maybe practice this without you having to count them through it, online you can find these little fancy GIFs that show you the little, just tell people to follow the ball, and that can be helpful and engaging as one opportunity to leverage this. There are many, many, many more of these breathing techniques. If this is something that you find value in, I will provide I'll provide a little listing that I've put together for some like mindfulness techniques that I've found successful to open a meeting. I'll follow up with all of you in an email, and I'll include that link. It's at tinyurl.com/mindfulmeeting. Another way that you can do it is to just share a video. And so here is one that I thought was valuable and good that I'll share with you from Andy Puttycombe is his name. If you're familiar with the Headspace app and some of the work that he's been doing.
So sitting comfortably, just taking a big deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the body expands. As you breathe out, just watching the body soften as you gently close the eyes. And rather than the mind leading the breath, allow the breath to lead the mind. Notice the sensation of the breath. Notice it where you feel it in the body. If you need to, you can just gently place your hand on the stomach. And just following that rising and falling sensation. Nothing else to do. Allowing thoughts to come and go. And when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes again.
So that's all of 1 minute and 10 seconds there. And I think that's another wonderful engagement that you can use to open a meeting. So what about singing and making music on Zoom? So I right now am using the built-in microphone for my MacBook. It's a couple-year-old MacBook, and the speakers that are in it. And here's an acoustic guitar and my voice. This microphone that you're seeing is not yet active, so we'll get to that in a minute. So you'd have Hallelujah, hallelujah. I suspect that for several of you, there were some in and outs maybe. There might have been some parts of the guitar that kind of sounded weird, that were maybe a little shrill, those kinds of things. So what is going on there? The audio quality on a video call like this depends on the microphone that you're using, obviously the instrument, the sound source, how that microphone is connected to the system that you're using. My Wi-Fi stability, your Wi-Fi stability, how busy the Zoom server is, you know, the headphones or speakers that you might be using that feed that sound back to you. All of that is at play. The biggest challenge typically for audio on these calls is just in the bandwidth. And there are two parts to that that affect music specifically. One is that what you're hearing is not the full audio experience that your ears would pick up. There is a way that the audio files are compressed to make them smaller data packets that travel to and from. And the other piece is that just, you know, there's only so much available bandwidth that you might be putting this through. So you might be on a video call that has nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with music, and somebody says, hey, your audio is breaking up, your audio, I have trouble hearing you. Sometimes what can help is to actually turn your video off, which means Zoom now doesn't have to process all my hand motions and gestures that you guys can't see that I'm making right now. It doesn't have to process the video, so it can dedicate a little bit more bandwidth to the audio. Sometimes people that you might have a conversation with are not aware they can't, nothing is wrong on their end, but on your end, they're getting all stuttery and caught up. Encourage them to turn their video off. That can sometimes help. But as I said earlier, if you're at all able, turn the video back on after the fact so that we have that visual engagement. A second piece that's going on is that obviously, and Zoom does a really, really good job. The other platforms that I've used, WebEx, Big Blue Button, they all have processing that focuses the audio on speech. Which means there is compression going on, where if you speak softer, it tries to bump it up a little bit. If you're too loud, it tries to push it down a little bit so it doesn't distort the channels. Zoom does a good job in suppressing background noise that might be going on. There's also echo and feedback cancellation, and something that I have called speaker priority. I'll talk about that in a minute. I actually have not found a whole lot of information on that, but just from experience, it seems that Zoom will give whoever is speaking the priority in terms of the audio that's being processed. I asked a couple of you earlier, I was playing something in the background, some piano music in the background when we were all just coming into the meeting. And as soon as I started to speak, it sort of pushes that piano music out and focuses on the speech that we're hearing. Something that doesn't work well for music, if, for example, say you're playing the piano and you have softer parts and louder parts, what's going to happen is that the compression algorithm, the auto volume algorithm that is in Zoom, will suppress the soft parts. So if you click, and I'm just going to have you all do that right now, if you go to your little microphone button, the one where you can mute and unmute yourself, next to that should be an up arrow or a down arrow, depending on your settings. If you click on that arrow, you should get options to select a microphone. You should get options to select a speaker. And on the bottom, it says test speaker microphone. On the very bottom, audio settings. Go ahead and click on audio settings. And depending on the device that you're on and how recently you have updated your Zoom client, and they just released a new update a couple of days ago. So that's probably something to check out if you go, depending on your machine, if you go to the top left corner, click on Zoom and check for updates, there might be some. But you should see a check mark under the input volume for the microphone that says automatically adjust microphone volume. I'm going to go ahead and click that right now. And so what happens now is that it doesn't go up and down with the volume level that I'm speaking into the microphone. Okay, so that's the auto compression, that if you're playing piano, if you're playing guitar, you want to make sure that that is turned off so that you are able to hear the full volume level, the whole dynamic range of the instrument that is being played. If you go to the advanced button that should, for most of you, be on the bottom right corner. Again, this has to do whether or not you're fully updated and up to speed with the what they call the Zoom client yet. If you click on advanced, you should be able to see what I have here on the share screen, where you can show in meeting option to enable original sound from microphone. I would discourage you from using that if you are not using headphones, because the loop of the audio output from a speaker and going back into a microphone can be especially noisy for this. But if you're using headphones and you're using a microphone, you would disable the persistent background noise and the intermittent background noise, and that also will improve the audio quality for music very much. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here in my settings. Okay, and the next thing that I'm going to do, if you looked at the options next to your microphone button under mute, select the microphone. I'm going to switch from the microphone in my computer to the microphone that's here next to me. And I'll do that for both the input and the output. And at this point, I should be able to hear all of you through my interface rather than through the speakers on my computer. Did any audio change for you guys? Can you hear me differently? It's a little bit better? It's a little bit better. No, it's not better?
Yes, you're softer.
I'm softer. Okay, that is something I can change. I can turn myself up a little bit. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, when you got
It's great, and there's less background hiss.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, so because this is a more sensitive microphone, it's not as loud probably, but hopefully a little bit less humming and stuff in the background. Okay, so those are sort of the settings that if you are trying to share music are important. So I have disabled the audio setting for the compression. I'm going to stop my screen share for a second because I want to turn on the original sound. I'm going to turn my video off to give all of the audio an opportunity to come through. Can you guys hear that guitar?
Yep.
Okay, and so I'm going to turn my video off and try it this way. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Cool.
So hopefully that was better, yes?
Beautiful.
For Darren.
Actually, no. Yeah, mine was coming in and out. It was, I don't know if it was my internet connection or what, but it was actually not as good. So what the original, enable original
sound, yeah.
What does that do? I'm confused about that.
That turns on and off that background suppression. So Zoom assumes that you're only going to want to use that intermittent background noise disabled when you are on a good microphone and headphones and don't have a bunch of background noise. So it lets you toggle back and forth between turning that background noise suppression on and off, basically. So it's connected to that screen I showed earlier.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine now. And so that's, yeah, I'm trying to, okay.
If you look at this audio processing suite right here, it basically switches on and off this option. So when I click on and it says turn original sound on, and then what you're seeing in the panel is turn original sound off, which means it's turned on, then these two are disabled.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, so some of you typed in the chat that the quality was better, but it did cut in and out a couple of times. So yeah, that could be my internet connection. That could be your internet connection. That could be the Zoom server saying, "Hey, I'm also processing audio for 100,000 other calls right now." But overall, I've tested this and tried this in a couple of different ways. It's definitely overall better. If you aren't using a fancy microphone like this here, then definitely the option to turn the this compression option, this automatically adjust volume, is really important for any sort of music that you're trying to convey and create on a Zoom call, because it is completely and does a very good job for speech, but it doesn't work for music at all. So those are some of the tricks that I found. I'm also using now an electric guitar, so I don't have to manage the acoustic sound of my guitar and my voice both, and I can monitor them separately, which helps me on the musical end to be able to distinguish from what I'm hearing in the room, which is my own voice, versus the guitar that I'm hearing in the headphones. For keyboard players, that can be really helpful too. If you're both playing piano and singing, I would encourage those folks to try an electric keyboard directly into the computer and listening to the headphones rather than having that acoustic sound in the room. Another thing that happens if I were to unmute all our microphones, and I'll do that in a minute, but what Zoom seems to do based on the bandwidth, the number of attendees, the internet connection, and so forth, is that it assumes that one person is the main speaker, and it dedicates audio processing resources to that main speaker. So we've tried, for example, with the worship band yesterday to have one person play guitar, another person sing, another person play harmonica. And what happens is that depending on how many people have open microphones, you will only hear what Zoom assumes is the speaker, which is the loudest instrument, and everything else is sort of cutting out. That seems to depend on the bandwidth, because we had it working, it worked fine, and everybody could hear everything. And then a couple of minutes later, only one person was being heard. So there seems to be, I've done some research, I've not found a lot of information. I call it speaker priority, but Zoom seems to give you audio processing preference when you are the person that seems to be speaking, leading the meeting. Why your choir can't rehearse online, we've talked about a couple of issues that exist with that, but latency is probably the biggest one. Most of our Western music, certainly, and any sort of rhythmic music, is based on the idea that there's a certain alignment to a pulse. With this, when I play a chord, before it gets to you guys, there's about a half a second, it seems, in Zoom. And I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone. You probably had like a pop there. Before it comes back to me, like let's say I ask Gordon to sing along with me, before it comes back to me, there's another half a second. So it's about, Gordon's shaking his head. There's another, so it's a full second now by the time that I'm hearing what somebody might be singing. And that's just a reality of using this technology, is that maybe in 20 years, it'll be so fast that that delay is imperceptible. Is that a word? Imperceptible? Unperceivable? English is not my first language, so there you go. But at this time, there's a notable delay. Now you can have musical experiences with that delay. I'm going to share with you guys. No, I'm not going to put it in the chat, because then you guys are all going to go listen to that. That's not what I want right now. I'll share with you in the follow-up email a really cool clip where Tori Kelly and Jacob Collier, if you don't know who those people are, you'll know when you get that email. Amazing musicians, but they did like an Instagram session together, and were playing with that latency, what musicians call it, that delay that's there. And so Jacob was playing the piano and Tori was singing, and Jacob basically said, I have to tune her singing completely out and just concentrate and try to feel and provide sort of a steady pulse for her to sing over. In what you and I can see in the YouTube video or on Instagram, there is some cool music going on. So it works when the phrasing can be a little bit open with the melody, and in jazz and in R&B and in blues, you can sort of push and pull a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly like in a German march, where if it doesn't line up, it's weird. So I would actually love to try that, and I'm going to unmute Julio and keep the rest of you guys muted, and see if we can do, just see what happens, and see if we get in trouble with the Come on. Julio, it's not letting me unmute you for some reason. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Wonderful.
There we go.
So we're going to try just the first little beginning of Amazing Grace and see what happens.
Amen.
Roland, let Julio sing because I've practiced with him just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're counting, right?
Yeah, I'm going to count you in. 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 2, 2.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Okay, so what?
Blind.
Awesome. Thank you, Julio. What happened is that I did not what I was supposed to do. I started paying attention to his time and lost my spot entirely. What did that sound like? Was it musical somewhat for the rest of you?
It sounded good.
Yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't horrible. It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So it seems when it's just one other person that's unmuted, for the rest of you, it's actually, you can create sort of a reasonable musical experience. My learning that I sort of knew and maybe should have practiced more is that I have got to ignore what I'm hearing from Julio and just play. And I didn't do a good job at that. I was trying to react because that's sort of my default. And I actually have been blessed to have made some music with Julio before. So I miss doing that with him. But so it's technically possible if you have somebody who is maybe a little bit better musician than me that can really lock into, I'm just playing this time, and the other person can sing to that for the rest of you, it's a reasonable experience of musically. And I was glad that we didn't have what happened yesterday with the speaker priority a couple of times where it just would either cut the guitar out completely and all you can hear is Julio, or it would cut out the Julio completely and you could just hear the guitar. So there are some musical forms where latency isn't quite as big of an issue, and those are drone-based musics. And what I want to try with you and just see what happens, because with a drone, and this is from Indian music, what I'm going to share here is just a video clip from YouTube that is a Shruti drone in E. And I'm going to unmute all of you. So be aware that it might get a little loud and don't like lean right into your mic. But I'm going to just play this drone and invite you as you see fit to just chant along and see what happens with that. So I'm going to start the drone first. And then unmute you all. Thank you, guys.
That really freaked my cat out.
That was actually kind of cool, I thought. I don't know what you were able to hear. I had like people coming in and out. It seems like maybe those that were closest to their mic or a little louder or a little softer, I could hear Julio with his melodica. and some of you sort of fading in and out. So I thought that was a cool experience. I think I'm going to do that again with the art session here and there. You know, maybe as an opening exercise. Let's chant together for a minute. So because we're not tied to this lining up with some pulse or beat, I think that's a musical experience that makes sense on Zoom. One thing that has come up for me that I'll share with you, and then I sort of want to open it for all of us to ask questions, or maybe you have some insights and suggestions for other audio, for other software that we could explore and find out. I'm going to go ahead and mute you all again, just for the recording and for the background noise. Recording music in Zoom. So I have a gentleman in our church who is an older gentleman who plays harmonica real wonderful, and who I am legitimately concerned about his health. And I've had moments where I thought, if this coronavirus hits him, then he's not going to be around. So I want to figure out how to record some of his harmonica playing now rather than wait till it's potentially too late. He is not super nimble with technology, so I'm not going to go and set him up with an audio recording software suite on his laptop. That's not going to bring him any joy. So what we're doing is I record guitar parts. I export them as a video file to YouTube. I give him the link to the YouTube file. I then, just like I did with you guys here earlier on a couple of these, you know, like this drone that I just played for you, I'll play the drone for him. I record him playing along to that. And the trick for doing that is that in Zoom, a new option is that you can record separate audio files for each participant. So when I record that session with him, he plays along to the video. After we're said and done, I can take the audio file that I recorded for him with just him playing the harmonica, and I've set him up with a microphone and headphones so that there is as good a quality as I can get. And then I import that back into my audio software, line it up with the guitar parts that I've created, and now have not the highest quality, but something where I can hear Dennis play the harp, and wanted to share that with you. So that's a cool little thing that we found that does work. With that, I will share with you this resource listing. I mentioned the tinyurl.com meeting mindful, that I have collected some videos and some breathing techniques and things that you might find value in. There's stuff, there's ongoing webinars and sessions at nexusforchange.com if you look at the events. I'm creating a blog entry for this session that we had today with some resources. And if any of you know teachers, particularly university professors that are struggling getting their stuff online, I highly recommend this teaching online transition. We do meetings twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we have gotten together a pretty cool resource collection of tips and tricks and tools for folks that are used to teaching in the classroom, how to move their stuff online. But with that, what are some comments, questions, feedback, frustrations, or things that you might bring today? Darren, go ahead, unmute yourself and share.
I just have to say the timing of this is brilliant because I'm gonna be leading an ecstatic dance workshop next Friday. And so generally when playing music, I use the advanced share computer sound only, or share computer sound. But I noticed on a dance session that somebody else was leading, they were using that, but it sounded like there was no bass, or that it was like, the sound quality didn't sound as good. And so I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for that, or if anybody else has noticed that. Because I really want to make sure that the music is coming through clearly. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit at the beginning of each song as we go through it, but not a lot. And I've experimented a lot with, doing that, and it works, but I'm just wondering about quality when using the advanced setting under share.
Yeah, with my experience, that turning original sound on so that it now reads in your panel, turn sound off, if you were to click it again, makes a huge difference in frequency response, as in a lot of the stuff that for speech in the higher end of the frequency spectrum would get squished or sound shrill in the music, and low end that doesn't exist is suddenly there. That makes a big difference in my experience. Have you used that feature for it?
I haven't in doing this feature, because I didn't know that was available when you share computer sound only.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll play with that. Thank you.
And I'm happy to spend an extra half hour with you being your guinea pig for that stuff if you'd like.
Thank
Let
you.
me know. Any other thoughts or comments? Any other breathing techniques that we need to check out? Yes, Carol, go ahead.
Well, here comes old Uncle Roland.
All right, Roland.
I'm the only living person who has mastered mindfulness and organization development. And my teacher is Swami Shivananda. His organization now is the largest global yoga organization in the world. He has named the breath. It's called the Shivananda breath. It's simply this. You inhale 4. You hold 2 seconds. And you slowly exhale 8. Okay? I spent 2 weeks in the in the mountains in Canada, Moran, with Vishnu Devananda, training me and teaching me, taking me through 6-hour sessions. And I did that breath after a little warm up for 6 hours.
Awesome. I share it in the chat, a link to his website, and maybe Roland, you can share with me a resource specifically for that breathing technique so we could share it with everyone.
I will do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Carol, go ahead.
So in the chat a long time ago was the request for what was that first song.
Oh.
And I want to tell you again, for somebody who's not musical, that video is unbelievable with seeing how he plays and the movement of his hands. And that's really unusual. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I find that for when I have used music to gather groups, I have used piano music because it's fairly universal. It didn't feel like people were like, oh, that's, here's Theo sharing Bach or something that's specific to his cultural context or something like that. So piano music seems to do that. And I think there is something about that particular artist and the way that those videos are recorded where you can see his hands. So it gives your eyes something to focus on, but it's directly connected to what you're hearing. It's not distracting from. I'll share a link to the gentleman in the follow-up email. His name is Eldad Zitrin. If I find the video real quick on YouTube, I'll put it in the chat here. I'm happy to share the PowerPoint. The little piece that I used as an example is Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and my interpretation, I guess, heavily borrows from Jeff Buckley's version of it, which I will also share with you because I think it's awesome. Any other thoughts or questions? Huli, what was that like for you to have to sing with somebody messing up on the guitar because he's listening to you sing?
Actually, I was going to ask you, because I haven't used Zoom too much in the way we're using it now, like more professionally, more engaging, more using all the features. We've used it with family for a long time, but now that we're getting into these features, especially with music, I agree with you that somebody should have a more structured beat, and the other person, like the part that I played in Amazing Grace, would have been more like it can be left as a laid back interpretation of a melody, sort of like what Ray Charles used to do, like sort of delay where he comes in a lot, and it still sounds great.
Yeah.
So if you define that early on, that there's that the harmonic instrument is going to be the one just keeping the beat regardless, and don't listen to the other person, then I think you.
All I could hear was, I think my headphones disconnected. Hold on.
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you for a second. There you are.
I could hear only your guitar, so
Right.
Well, which is good, I guess, because I'm not hearing myself delayed, which would have been even more weird. But you can hear me.
But it's like a second. Like for me, it's extremely late. Like it's Ray Charles on Ambien, right? So
would it work? Would it work to lower or put me on just one ear, or lower my volume while you're playing?
Right.
Steady.
Well, we'll have to play with that maybe. Yeah, I think that would help me not get as distracted as but I think it's probably just a discipline thing too, in terms of getting used to that as a different experience.
And my question was like, just curiosity. I would like to hear it. We're gonna have a recording of this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely share that with everyone. Thank you. Any other questions or suggestions? I'm interested, are there any other tools that you guys have used, anybody, for sharing, making music together online in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I have one story. If you want me to talk about it, I can. The key is music becomes the psychological grounding for the entire group. Think about it. So music is absolutely key. Amen, hallelujah.
I could not agree with you more. On that note, I say thank you so much. Those of you that stuck around, I appreciate you, and have a fantastic weekend. Thanks, guys.